8th grade, I got saved at summer camp, and I made the decision to follow God wherever he was. I said, God, wherever you are, that's where I want to be. And so I went to seminary and I did this and that, and I served at every camp opportunity I could. In seminary, my discipleship director asked me, what do you want to do with your life? And I said, I want to open and run a summer camp. And she looked at me and said, that dream's too big. And I said, okay. And I started making plans and adjusting things, and but it was always nagging at the back of my head. That would be so cool. Summer camp would be so cool.
We're the Welsh family. We are the founders, establishers, and directors of Core 250, which is a youth summer camp ministry, specifically with the mission and vision of having kids come to our camp property to help them discover God and do it in an outdoor setting. So Sarah and I both have worked for a number of different camps. So we're always firm believers in that God is going to bring some of that equipping and give some of the experiences that helps kind of, to a point, jumpstart some of those things. We were dating, and we had already worked for some camps, and God had placed that particular nugget of a dream. Because we weren't even engaged yet, if I recall, but it was still something that God was sowing into. And this is a great opportunity for us to share about the progress of where we've come in our 6 years of existence. But that's how it started. It was the back of the pickup. We were like, this would be a really cool idea. And I mean, a lot of prayer got us to where we're at now. Stump Fest was our work week, which for us meant servants tearing up ministry projects. So it was a Monday through a Saturday where we contacted a bunch of volunteers to come out, go through as many different projects as we could, which included, where we're sitting at now within the barn. This is almost a 100-year-old barn that needed a lot of tender, loving care to even bring it to the state that it's in now. So we love the direction that particular work week helped us for the short term for the summer, because this space itself we just want to use as rainy day activities, because we know weather happens, and we still want to be able to have that continuation of camp continuing on when we have our campers here. So we leveraged a number of different people. We had the great opportunity of other people just donating goods and materials, a number of people who gave just meals to be able to feed those volunteers, that we were able to accomplish more than we typically would, just based on our track of come on a Saturday, we'll get as much as we can done. So for us, this was our first year of tackling our bigger building phase projects that we're hoping to be able to do, Lord willing, in 10 years. So the start of this year, to that completion of having everything, camp constructed in that time period.
Moving out here has been the biggest challenge in the process. 2019, we had our first weekend of summer camp, a little half-acre of land in South Bend. 2020, 2020. And 21 came around, and at the end of 20, I looked at Tim and I said, how cool would it be if we bought a camp and moved out? So we prayed, and we said, God, can it be about this many acres, cost about this much, with a little bit of water on it, and in this county, and this camp is the only place that we looked at, which I think is really, really cool. But before we bought the place, our realtor recommended that we go and talk to the zoning board, make sure that we can do what we want to do here before we buy the place. And so we put all of our ideas together, we presented it to the board, and they shot it down, and I cried hard. And all of our neighbors that we had to notify saying, hey, this is what we're looking to do. Some of them came, some of them didn't come to the hearing, and a lot of them were just grouchy because the way that things were worded came across that we were more like a campground, like a Yogi Bear type thing, and they don't want that here. And I said, good, because that's not what we're doing. We had to step out in faith, trusting that this is the place that God had for us, even before we had permission to do what we wanted to do here. We found a really great firm that helped us come up with the site plan. And when we came back to the zoning board and said, hey, this is the plan, they had no questions. That's been a really cool journey to kind of go through. And even looking forward to what we are doing, in the next couple of years, there are some moments where I'm like, God, I don't know how we're gonna do this, but we'll just keep showing up and we'll keep working and keep talking and figure it out. When we were getting ready for camp and starting to put things together and thinking about how do we phase things out and how do we get people involved, or who do we get involved, I thought about Solomon. And I said, okay, how did Solomon build the temple? What strategies did he use? How many people did he use? So I thought the story of that section of the story of Solomon was very applicable to where we're at. But even like thinking about Noah and how God gave him very detailed instructions on how to build the ark. It's a really encouraging reminder to think like, okay, God gave us everything we need in his word. We just got to ask him and find it. So we have a couple of weekends of camp scheduled. We have a couple of camp days scheduled as well. We have 2 survival camps. Survival camp is basic wilderness survival as well as spiritual survival camp. So we are teaching not only first aid and how to start a fire and things like that, but we're also going through the Bible and talking about creation and talking about what God did. We're sharing the gospel as well, which I think is really cool. We already have several kids signed up, and we'll have our 3 younger camps in July.
We want to challenge kids. We want them to learn and identify who God has made them to be. And then comes that challenging piece then of, okay, so you now know that, how are you going to use it? Now we want that actual application in your everyday life. So if we know that God has given you this skill or ability, how are you using that in your family? How are you using that in your school life? How are you using that? Again, that all things are looking to be able to glorify God. So for us, our hope is that the way that we're directing things, the interactions, not only with other campers, but just with us as adults, really continually is feeding, that spiritual walk that we want them to have with Jesus.